Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining me in discussion this afternoon with Alexandra Bond Burnett of Speaking Ambition. And this afternoon, we're talking about stepping into success. Alexandra, good afternoon. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I would. Thanks, Gary. Hi, guys. I'm Alexandra, as Gary so aptly told you, and my company is Speaking Ambition. And what I do is I help companies with their people skills and ultimately their development as managers and as leaders, and their overall, all of those soft skills and interpersonal skills that really help turn a company from good to great. So that is what I'm here to do today.
And you know, this is what's fascinating for me, and this is why I wanted to have this discussion, because when I'm working with business owners at Tendo, helping them develop their business plans, you can have the best business plan in the world, but if you don't have a team that will help you execute that business plan, firstly, you're not going to get the results you want. Secondly, you're not going to be able to exit the business effectively. So getting your people aligned and getting your team sorted out is the key for me to enable any business owner to step into success.
Oh, absolutely. It's not, culture isn't just about yogurt anymore. It really is the foundation of really what you're building and creating, isn't it? I mean, how many times do we hear it's all about the people?
Yeah, and in the current environment, I think, team retention and attracting the cream of the talent are the two biggest strategies that I'm seeing and hearing when I'm talking to clients right now. So that's why this is absolutely apt. And I'm so looking forward to this discussion with you this afternoon. So shall we jump straight in?
Let's go. Let's go.
Well, the first area that we identified was, now we've got the intros out of the way, was developing a clear vision. So why is this important for you?
Oh, well, if you're navigating any great ship or movement, it's always about navigating, isn't it? You've got to really have a clear idea of where you're going. So I'd say outline your vision and really know what the parameters are. What are you happy with? What are you not going to be happy with? And what result are you really trying to achieve? Always surprising how many times we go in and actually you can easily lose sight as you're going along with what you're actually trying to get out of a situation or get out of someone. And so be really clear on what that vision is. Yeah. Should I go jump into my next one? What do you think?
Well, I think for me, you've got to understand what success looks like, haven't you? So having that vision as to what success looks like, because I guess the question for me would be, once you've got that vision articulated, how do you take the team with you? Because it's not about saying, here's my vision, will you buy into it? We now need to be engaging the team so they will almost deliver that. How do we take the team with us?
Yeah, I like that. It's how do I bring people along, or at least what differentiates me from my business and my service or product from everyone else out there? Because these days it's not just what you do, it's the way you do it, and it's what you believe. And that goes for, as you're saying earlier, attracting and retraining talent. That matters now. It's not just about turning up for your 9 to 5 anymore.
And I'm finding a lot that, whereas if I go back 3 or 4 years ago, the business owner wanted to lock themselves away and develop the plan and then take that back to the office and say to the team, here's the plan. They're now saying, I want my senior management team, at least, if not more, involved in that process, because they've got the ideas, but also it needs to be their plan, not my plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Ownership, taking ownership of that accountability. It's so powerful because you're giving people that connection to what they're doing, and it means that they leave the end of the day going, I'm really a part of something here, rather than just, I don't feel valued, I don't feel useful, that kind of thing.
And if it's their vision, they're more likely to put the shoulder behind it and achieve it, rather than it being somebody else's vision that they don't buy into, that they go, do you know what, that's not achievable, therefore I'm not going to work towards achieving that. So
yeah. Absolutely. And you've also got to be really clear. So that's the other thing, is if you're going to invite other people in, you've got to be really clear on exactly what that is and what it looks like, what it feels like when you do achieve the goal, and what that vision is. And that's, a lot of people forget that, as they plan it out and then they'll go into, we never really thought what would happen. What does it look like? How will I know that I've achieved that? when do you suddenly turn around and go, oh, okay, we're good. Now I need to redefine what the vision as we're moving forward and as we go forward as well. So really ask yourself, what does it look like? What does it feel like? How will you know that you've actually achieved your goals in line with your vision?
Yeah, sure. And I think, just leading into the next point that we'll come on to in a moment, everybody's got to stand and fall by achieving this vision, haven't they? So it's got to be a team effort, and you've got to all focus on delivering that vision and achieving that result, but you've also all got to celebrate success.
Yes. Yeah.
So how do we build that dynamic team, Alexandra?
Okay, well, first of all, capital D for dynamic there, because that's the thing, you're collecting people with loads of different personalities, loads of strengths, and it's about highlighting those strengths rather than trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. So really look at what your job descriptions are saying, what you're asking them to deliver, and if you've already got your team, be really clear on what their point of difference is in your business. So what are they uniquely strong at? What are they great at? And it doesn't mean you necessarily stay away from what they're not so great at, but you can build on so much rather than stay away from things. So yeah, understand each person's unique point of difference in the business and how they fit together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And for me, the definition of a really, really great team is a group of people that trust each other. And it's not, that isn't my job, or I don't, I think a large part of it for me, building a dynamic team, is empowering them to do the right thing, not necessarily what's on a job description. If there's something there that needs doing, you feel empowered to do it because it's the right thing for the business, not because it's not on your job specification.
Yeah, exactly. And that actually requires somewhat of a coaching culture. And a lot of people we're just starting to understand what that really means, having that kind of coaching culture or an environment for high performance. And that means, being really clear on what you expect of them, but equally what they expect of themselves, of what they're, how can you help get the best out of that person is what that your entire culture should be built around. And that, is inviting them to step up and knowing that they can be a bit creative, and that's okay with you. The other thing is you've got to look at egos as well, because you can get a lot of clashes if people think, if you do get someone stepping up and someone says, hey, whoa, that's my space, what are you doing in my space? So be really clear on a united agenda as well, that you're all there to help get one thing done. And again, that then links back to your vision, and that you're there to do that so that you're helping each other step up rather than step on each other's toes.
How important for you in this building a dynamic team and having that, no egos is, we hear a lot, don't we, about, hire on attitude, not on technical ability, not on skills. You can teach that. What's the impact in your experience of having a team where you've got a brilliant jerk on board, where somebody's very, very good at the job, but they're a disruptive influence in terms of how they interact with the rest of the team?
Oh yeah, so brilliant jerks or toxic employees. They're usually the A stars, but they've never really learned how to operate with anyone else. Unfortunately, that means that you do get this toxic environment that can lead through. And I've seen this in a lot of businesses. So the impact of that is that suddenly the rest of the relationships in the team gets soured, and the motivation gets soured. And suddenly it's like everything's been a little bit tainted. So the risk is, and what you see is someone going, okay, this isn't great. But if it goes on too long, you actually cause serious long-term damage with really good people. So you've got to be really aware of what's happening and how that would you say brilliant jerk? A brilliant jerk is actually affecting other people and how they're making them feel, and making sure that there's space to have a conversation openly about what's going on, and just kind of manage the dynamic of those relationships, which isn't easy.
So part of that for me, and from what I'm hearing from you, is you've got to understand what those core values are, that are the things that grind your gears, and therefore what is the antithesis of those. So if you understand what those values are, it's all then about clear communication. These are the values, these are why they're important, and these are this is the consequence if you don't follow them. So there's a big part around understanding the values and then the communication of the importance of them.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone has their own unique values as a human being, kind of psychologically speaking, like what really matters to them. So actually a lot of personality clashes or not great fits with a business would be if, those core values don't match up. And of course, company values are then the umbrella under which everyone else kind of sits and works together, like a set of guiding principles. Or I had one client who said it's like a unique language that you all are a part of and you all know, and it brings you together. So yeah, and then you do, if you're speaking that same language, then you do have a clear communication. But those are all things that actually you've got to set up and then implement throughout the members. And then when you're bringing on board new people, they can go through that process of getting to know everyone and learning the new language, if that makes sense. But yeah, just taking the time to understand each individual and what drives them, what motivates them, what they're not so keen on doing, really helps certainly you as a manager or as a leader to go, great, this person's going to be amazing at this. Or if you can twig something's not right with someone and something's going on, it's just having that ability to notice and then go, okay, what's happening in this space, because this is affecting productivity, so we need to fix this.
And of course, the challenge for most small business owners is they are extremely stretched in terms of the time they have available. So when they're recruiting, they need a bum on a seat tomorrow. So perhaps not the most experienced recruiter. They're rushing the process and maybe not looking at value alignment in terms of the benefits that we've just talked about for a few moments. And then if they do find when they get a month in that particular new team member isn't value aligned, they're reluctant to get rid of them because they need that resource. They hope it'll just work out, and therefore it exacerbates the problem, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit like being in a bad relationship, isn't it? You stay in a bad relationship because you're not quite sure what it looks like, or it just feels exhausting having to go and be on your own again, or have to go through the whole process again. But as we probably know, and as any one of you watching would probably say to potentially a loved one or a best friend, the best thing is to move on as quick as you can, and it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. But yeah, that's always the risk, that it's that fallacy of being time poor means you end up wasting more time on bad decisions potentially, because you're so worried about that. So it's about having a real awareness and being able to step back.
And it makes the problem worse, doesn't it?
Yeah,
because you're spending more time managing somebody that shouldn't need managing in the first place, and it makes you even more time poor than the benefits you were meant to get.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's like it's like buying spending poor money on something cheap. And I used to have this years and years ago when I first met my husband. I was a student, so I was always in that student money mindset of like buying a cheap pair of boots or shoes, and of course you spend like £10, but you end up spending like buying 10 pairs, whereas if you buy £100 pair of boots, they last you 5 years. So it's the same thing with people.
Buy cheap, buy twice.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of relationships, that kind of moves us nicely in. So why when we're looking to step into success, is building successful relationships so important in your mind?
Oh my gosh, for me, I mean, this is literally the work that I do, but I do believe businesses are built on relationships. They're built on great ideas. They're built on hard work and shared work ethics. And people, the unique thing we do as humans is we bring that out in each other. So one of the kind of mantras or guiding principles of the work I do is that is that you always have an influence. No matter what you do, if you're walking in the street, that's how communication works. You are always influencing people. So if you're going to do that, influence them positively if you can. Yeah, in terms of, especially as a business owner, especially as a manager.
And are we talking internal relationships, external relationships, and how do we build those relationships?
All relationships, every stakeholder in your business, which can be quite a daunting, especially if you're not, if you're more of an introvert. And that's the part of business though, or entrepreneurship, is that you're going in, and if you're having a conversation, whether it's a sales conversation or a leadership conversation, think about that outcome and really think about what the common goal you share is between each other. And then really think about how you can invest in that relationship so that it's not centered on your needs or desires, but so you can drive it forward towards both of your center point, as it were. So you're kind of coming together.
Yeah. So from your perspective, it's all stakeholders, but largely internal. It's about, investing in that team, working towards a common goal, influencing people positively with strong conversations. Mm-hmm. In my world, it's also about building that external network. So, who are those referral partners that are going to help you drive your sales? Mm. Who are those strategic partners that can support your business in terms of, some of the, whether it's your accountant or your bookkeeper or whoever it might be, people that can just take the pressure away and do what's right. And it's just taking that pressure away, taking that problem away, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly that. Yeah, I love that, taking the pressure away. And that's the thing, these relationships, they're the things that serve you. People do center back on people that have made an impact on someone else. I mean, that's how you and I met. It's how probably if you look at your address book, in a sense, you come across that person and there's a connection. I mean, there are enough people on the planet that you can find someone that you really enjoy working with. And
I think the key is it's understanding what to look for, though. And, in the early stages of running a business, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. I was having a conversation with a relatively new client to me back end of last week, and he's in very, very high growth mode. And I asked him if he had a cash flow forecast, which he didn't. And I said, why, have you asked your accountant for a cash flow forecast? And he said, well, I've not spoken to my accountant for months. Now, for me, he needs an accountant that's proactive, that's coming to him saying, hey, you need a cash flow forecast here so you don't get yourself into trouble. But he doesn't know that that's what he needs, and therefore he's not asking the right questions of that particular relationship that he has.
So is he now, what's the starting point, do you think, when you don't know what you don't know?
Well, I think part of that is having that support network around you. Now, whether it's somebody that's known to you, that's built a successful business, that's trodden that path, whether it's somebody that you meet at a networking event, an advisor, but you need somebody that can just ask you those questions, that can say, hey, why have you not got, now I've asked him that question. He can then go back to his accountant to say, what I really need from you is you to be proactive. Mm-hmm. I need you to be coming to me with ideas, and that's all about value alignment. And if you're not going to be able to do that, then I've got to really question whether you're the right person to add maximum value to my business.
Yeah. And I think that is actually a key phrase, isn't it? Is, do you add value in a great way, though, like in a mutual way? Like, how can we work together to actually produce something that's incredible?
Yeah, so and that's the difference between they have a relationship, but they don't have a successful relationship. Because in my view, in this particular example, the accountant's able to deliver a lot more value. Now, there's two reasons why he's not delivering value. A, he's not proactive or unable to deliver value, or the client in question is buying the services on cost, not value, and therefore the accountant saying, we've not asked me for that, so I'm not going to position that. So, it's incumbent upon that business owner to understand what they actually want, and therefore to ask the right questions to get the right person to help build that successful relationship.
That almost trails back to number one, which is be clear on your vision, because if you're not clear on your vision, you won't know which relationships are going to be successful for you.
Yeah, and this particular person, you know, if they don't get some clarity on their cash flow, there's a real chance over the next few months they're going to hit some pinch points, and it, you know, it will potentially put their business in, you know, in some areas of difficulty. So, you know, if we're going to be stepping into success, we need to make sure in this particular circumstance that having the right person to give us the cash flow forecast is going to, you know, prevent us hopefully getting those pinch points in the business.
Yes, absolutely. It is about investing in those relationships, investing in the people that are going to help you and get the best out of you, and vice versa. Because in that scenario of the accountant as well, is that accountant's going to feel great about the work that they do, because if they're helping someone who's in that high growth stage navigate some huge bumps in the road.
Yeah, and you know, all comes back to referrals and value add and all the rest of it, doesn't it? Mm. So in terms of moving on, then this kind of concept of, you know, interact, don't react. You know, what does this mean in your world?
Okay, so a lot of the time we move through in our relationships, in terms of work relationships, but also the way that we communicate specifically. And where there's a lot of work that's being done at the moment in terms of emotional intelligence. So not just your IQ in terms of the smarts that you bring, but also I suppose your relationship and your awareness of how your emotions work and how that drives you, because that's what lies behind performance, and that's what lies behind your good days and your bad days, and how you manage the ups and downs of everything. So when you're reacting, that's you're just going, you're just active, and you're almost kind of a slave to what's just happening in the moment, rather than being in control. And when you're interacting, you're in control of yourself and your emotions and the situation, regardless of if it's good or bad. So the first thing I'd always say is, in terms of reacting, because this is what really has an impact with people, and this is where you can really impact, is be really generous with your attention, with your time when you can be, instead of reacting. Now, we get this a lot. You said earlier about being with time poor. It's a struggle, isn't it, to get those moments, and you just think, I can't tell you the amount of times I've heard it just this week, and it's starting to flag up as this thing that starts to really go like this for me, which is, I don't have time. I just don't have time. And that can be very true, in the sense of there's too much to do in a 24-hour time period, especially if you know, in the last year we've been at home with kids and families and all of these things, that life that happens, absolutely. But there is also a case of what I would say the battle is prioritizing time. And the trouble that happens, and I've had this so much, is, well, yeah, my family is a high priority, my business is a high priority, I've got high priority things conflicting all the time. But that's where you end up in the reaction stage, and you can end up being just stressed or happening, and all these kind of negative things. But when we act with generosity with our time, and then we can interact with people. So for instance, before we started this call, you said to me, I've got my phone on an airplane. Yep. You're being generous right now with your attention. We're not being distracted, we're being focused. And that can be really powerful. And you can even be generous to yourself by giving yourself that just pause. Learning to pause is one of the most powerful communication techniques, I think, that we can do.
Well, it's giving yourself permission, isn't it? You know, a lot of business owners feel that if they take half a day off or they leave early, then they're not committed to the cause, and people will think bad of them. And you know, my view is, you know, you've got to give yourself permission to take time out, and if that's with your family or to follow a hobby, but you know, it's giving yourself that permission, and that pause, that reset enables you to recharge the batteries and come back with you know, even more energy and more commitment than you had before.
Yes, exactly. Just because, I mean, we've got this whole work hard, you know, hustle kind of vibe that goes on in a business owner type mentality. And actually learning to go, I will be more productive and I will be better for my employees, for my clients, for my family if I just take this time out, is being generous in terms. So it's not a selfish thing sometimes to have that pause, to have that time. And even just with the way you speak, like if you're when I work with people who try to have more productive meetings, just to even in the meeting just take a pause and go, okay, I need to just collect my thoughts just for a second.
But, you know, when a business owner is building a dynamic team that we've talked about earlier, you know, it's really, really important, isn't it, to take time out to spend with them, to be generous with your time, to ask them questions, to listen. And it's all too easy to say, can you just do this? Can you just do that? And walk out of the room. And, you know, how engaged are those people when they feel that you don't care and you haven't got time? And for me, if you're not taking those few moments out to say, you know, how was your weekend? How are things with you? How can I help you be more efficient with your time? How can I help you deliver better results? What are your frustrations? Then what happens is the business owner doesn't have their finger on the pulse, and therefore they're making the wrong decisions sometimes because they're not crystal clear on what the real issues are, because either they're not asking the questions or they're not listening to what's being said.
Yes, taking the time to listen, we think that there's no time. There's no time to do that, or I'll go into, I'll just do it. And as you say, just tell, sorry, I've got a croaky voice. Or just telling people. And yeah, just having the time to pause and say, what do you need, is actually part of your job role. And we forget that, I think.
And you touched on this coaching earlier. You know, part of a good leader for me is being a good coach. And that is ask, don't tell. It's not, I'd like you to do it this way. It's, how do you think you could improve that? How do you think you could get that done in the time given? And it's asking them in a particular way for them to lead by example, to come up with the ideas, to come up with the solutions, and feel engaged and empowered and bought in.
Yeah. So they can make it their own. Absolutely. Yes. And listening is a key part of that. Okay. So in bringing people up with you, and yeah, having that space so that they can actually explore their own thoughts and ideas and what works, because you're more likely to be higher performing, to build a better habit if you're nurtured in your own way rather than trying to do it someone else's way.
And sometimes taking that step back to pause, to reflect and look at the bigger picture enables you to build something bigger and better, because you're not in reactive mode.
Yes, absolutely.
So if that transitions then into, you know, let's just talk a little bit about leadership styles and why understanding and owning your leadership style is so important. You know, there's hundreds of different leadership styles, I'm sure. Why is it important to understand what yours is and how to own it?
Well, it's just like I was just saying, if you find your way, your style of doing things, so there are techniques that you can learn. If you think about driving, everyone has a slightly different driving style or a way of driving. You might be super slow and cautious. You might be a bit of a, I think my driving instructor said I have a need for speed back when I was learning. But everyone has a bit of a different style, and that gets developed. So, you know, the best leaders that I've worked with, I'd say have a real sense of humility. Like early on in their careers, they thought they knew everything, and actually the more they went on, they realized that the best mindset was actually I don't know anything, and I need to get it out of other people, and always be curious, always be learning. Finding your own influence style is really about being self-aware, knowing what your strengths are, what you bring to the table. And that means that if you are, for instance, if you're a big vision person, you might need someone who's really detail orientated, or is the finisher or the doer. So then you know what to look for in terms of the rest of your team, or who to nurture and who to develop. When you own your leadership style, you know what you're good at, so that you can get the best out of other people and you can really empower your team. And so what are you good at? Where are you in your element? and to be honest, grow that, develop those things. And if you're not great, so you were saying about the client of yours, you needed the cash flow. Yeah, they need someone who's going to, it sounds like they almost need someone who's going to be thinking outside the box and going, oh, I'm looking forward. So they need someone who's going to do the compliance of accountancy, but also be a bit of a finance director, be a bit of a manager, you know, in terms of that skill of looking forward, and who gets really excited about growth, and things like that. So once you understand your leadership style and own your influence, your way of influencing people, and how you affect and impact other people, then that's when you know you can use those skills to get the best out of them, and you can build those better relationships. And also you can actually start to recognize in other people what motivates them. So what gets them really, really excited, and really like, I'm having the best day ever. And when you do that, it just makes everything come together because people are excited to go to work.
Yeah, if I go back a number of years when I was very, very young in my management career, you know, there was a big push towards, if you understand your strengths and weaknesses, you can work on improving your weaknesses. And then I can't remember about when, but you know, that flipped, and it was a case of, well, stop trying to turn your weaknesses into strengths. You'll never turn your weaknesses into strengths. You'll only ever turn them into competencies. So what you should do is focus on your strengths and do more of those, and then find somebody else in the team that has a strength where you've got a weakness, rather than you try to be everything. And I think that this is what owning your leadership style means to me. It's not trying to be everything. It's being authentic and being you, and then finding people in the team around you that can plug the gaps that you have. So you've got a kind of rounded team.
Yes, exactly. And making sure that is their strengths, because you can get like those toxic relationships we were chatting about earlier. When people are left or lumbered with something that they don't feel comfortable doing, it takes them a long while. And that's the thing, is that it'll be harder, it will take more time, it will be more costly to do something that isn't a strength. And it's not to say, of course, we all can just do the things we love and can't do the things that we don't, but at least you're aware of why something might be difficult for you. And if we've got a team that's empowered, that we've talked about previously, if you've got a team that's empowered, that's value aligned, that trusts each other, you don't need to micromanage. There's too many leaders and micromanaging because they've either got the wrong people in the team or the control freaks. But what that means is, if you're micromanaging, it means you don't trust somebody. Yes.
I was
going to say, do you know the top reason why people leave? Do they leave jobs, or do they leave bad managers?
Yeah. It's they don't feel trusted, they don't feel empowered, they don't feel they've got a future there. And that's all down to leadership style, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
So how do we, you know, we've talked on a couple of occasions, haven't we, about, you know, time is the one commodity we can never get back. It's the one thing that most business owners and leaders are short of. But how can we be more productive to help us step into success?
Oh, this is a good one, isn't it? How can we be more productive? I think a lot of our conversation has gone down very, as you've used the word aligned a lot, in terms of bringing everything together. So we end up wasting a lot of time when we're not really focused on the purpose of what we're doing. And that can be in a communication or a meeting. You get shiny object syndrome. So really focus on, what is this going to do? How does this move me a step? How does this move the dial forward? If that makes sense. Is this worth doing?
But isn't that, as we talked earlier, isn't that understanding, you know, what you want to do and should be doing, and what you don't want to do and what you shouldn't be doing? Because, you know, inevitably business owners get involved in a hell of a lot. And what I find is that if you're not dialed into your purpose, or you don't have a business that will allow you to achieve your purpose, you finish up getting very tactical and very, very busy, and you've lost your mojo. And once you've lost your mojo, you're perhaps not earning the money, you're working long hours, and you just get into this downward spiral. So part of it for me is being crystal clear. This is what ignites my fire. This is what doesn't, and the stuff that doesn't ignite my fire, I need to look to outsource or to delegate or to get a team member to do or automate it. But part of being more productive for me is dialing into that purpose and understanding what fires my energy, and then delegating and outsourcing everything else.
And that's the key question there, which you've said, is what fires me up. So throwing that back out to anyone watching, which is, when are those moments where you are absolutely on the top of your game, when you feel really like the best version of you? And I know that sounds like it should be on a mug somewhere, but it's very true, isn't it? It's, for me, it's like when I'm speaking or training or delivering or coaching, and I genuinely feel like I'm in my element, like I've just run a marathon and I feel incredible. So when is that moment for you? And that goes back to, of course, playing to your strengths. But if you're focused on what the purpose of that is and what it's going to deliver, then yeah, you're going to be so much more productive. And also be really aware of your energy. That's a big one. I mean, you were just saying that in terms of what gives you that energy. And that can actually mean throwing out the rule book sometimes in terms of how you run your day. And we don't have to be tied to the old ways of doing things. You can actually have a look. So something I've had to actually look at during the pandemic is I'm not very good. People energize me, being with people, talking with people. So, and I used to go out and deliver a lot of trainings and work in-house, excuse me. And so what the change of my environment really affected my energy and affected how I was showing up. So when things started opening up, I had to really go, okay, I'm basically leaving my house, dropping my child off at school, and then coming to the office, and then I'm there all day until I go back to school, and then I go back home. And it's like, this is not a variety for me. And for me, my needs are, I have to have a certain level of variety, I have to have a certain level of this, and having those large stretch of days actually means I'm not very productive. So the question is, what makes you productive? What do you need in your day, and how can you insert it into the structure of your week? So for me, actually, I started going to the gym first thing after school, and although it shortens my work day, I actually do so much more after I've had the energy and the endorphins, and I've seen some people, and the coffee. I do more on those days in less time than I do with a longer day of just sitting on my own in an office.
Because you're energized and you feel that you've got that lifestyle balance right. Yes. Or I change it up. So if I'm not having to have a private call or a confidential call or doing a recording, actually I've started going to a cafe just to have some energy and buzz around me and that variety. So this is where flexible working actually can help be in tune with different people and different people's needs, in case if they need that quiet time, if they need that level of being around people. So we can throw out the rule book a bit now and really work to our best energy. So in summary on this section, then it's really understanding what your purpose is and what ignites your fire, and then making sure you're building a team and systems behind you that enable you to do more of that every single day. And that's how you be more productive, because you're doing the things that put the fire in your belly.
Yes, I like that. I mean, one thing I will add though, so I use a tool which is based on needs, and so there are six needs that we say we have, and actually just taking a minute to go, okay, am I getting the certainty or uncertainty I need? Because sometimes we need that word. Some people thrive. It's where you thrive, basically. Do you thrive of knowing exactly where you're going to be every second of the day and having that scheduled? Do you thrive from having spontaneous moments? Do you thrive from having variety in your work or in your environment? All of these things you can ask yourselves, and I get people to score themselves out of 10 because I like the scalability. And And that means you can go, okay, if I'm 7 out of 10 right now, what do I need to get there to get to 10?
Yeah. No, good tool. So that kind of leads us nicely into how do we reset our personal priorities? Because it's so easy as a business owner, and I see and hear it hundreds of times. I can't remember the last time I went to the gym. I'm overweight. My relationships are strained. I'm working long hours. I'm working weekends and nights. How do we make sure we reset those personal priorities?
Oh, this is a big one. I know you're very passionate on this as well, aren't you? In terms of that balance. Okay, I'd say it's about really understanding. It's going back to this whole vision thing. Why did you start doing this? What's the purpose of it? You're right, so many people get stuck in this routine and it all caves in on you, and suddenly the days are long and it's stressful and you feel bogged under and the problems keep coming. And I know someone, once you get to management and that bigger status when your company is growing, sometimes you just get all the problems thrown at you and you're firefighting all the time, and it can feel overwhelming. So really have a really firm idea about what it is you're willing to give and what your boundaries are. Does that make sense?
And this comes down to purpose for me. An element of purpose isn't just what puts fire in your belly. An element of purpose when I'm working one-to-one with clients is understanding what financial rewards you want and what you're going to do with those rewards, and what lifestyle you want. And I was with a client last week, their senior management team, they all want to take 3 months off in the summer to spend time on holiday. Well, what we've got to do in order for that to happen, firstly, we've got to articulate that that's what they want and that they're comfortable letting go for that period of time. What we've then got to do is we've got to put the right systems in place and the right people in place to enable us to achieve that over a period of time. But it's impossible to reset that personal priority if you don't put the systems or the people in place to help you achieve it.
Yes, it's not as simple as going off and doing your 4-hour work week, and there has to be processes in place, and you have to figure out how this works, and who is and what the responsibilities are, and part of those boundaries are not just yourself. So what am I willing to give to this? What do I want to achieve from my time, from my energy? Also, what do my family give to this as well? And one of the things I always wanted was, and actually my husband and I, we both made a very clear boundary. It's like we want to be there for a certain amount of all of the nativities and sports days and things like that for us. Otherwise we might as well be working back in corporate. So
this starts to knit everything together, doesn't it? If you're clear on your purpose and what puts fire in your belly and what you want out of your business in terms of lifestyle, you can then make sure you're putting the systems in place, setting the boundaries, and recruiting the right team that are empowered and engaged and value aligned, that are going to run the business and allow you to have that time off and have those personal priorities once you've reset them.
Most things are quite acceptable these days. We're living, a lot of companies are starting to move to 4-day weeks. A lot of people are doing flexible working. Even companies are doing shares, whether in terms of you can go work from a different country for a couple of months or something like that, because technology allows us to do that, but you do have to have the processes in place to enable that to happen. So if you're going to work backwards and work out your ideal, then you can work and say, okay, what do we need to do to get there? But this is where I get really excited, because actually, if you have a vision about how something can look like, so many people say, oh, that wouldn't be able to be possible, that won't work. And I really love saying, why not?
And do you know what, that leads us right in, doesn't it? Because all of this stuff is starting to come together now in terms of developing the vision and building the team and the relationships and productivity and leadership style. But what do people need to achieve this this idea of having a lifestyle and a business that puts fire in your belly and helping you step into success both personally and professionally. Where do we go for help?
Well, the first thing is learning to ask for it. So I think that can be the biggest struggle, that we have, having that vision of how to be perfect and how to do everything yourself so that you can be the self-made person, and especially when you're at the top and you're the manager and the owner and the leader, you feel like everything should really come to you, and that can be then really hard to be vulnerable, because it can feel very uncomfortable to actually go, no, I need help here. So yes, I'm going to go back to the fact that play to your strengths in terms of what are you good at. Don't do what you're not good at. Get someone in to do that. They're going to be better at it than you are. And hire experts in their fields. And I think that's one of the best pieces of advice I've ever had in terms of running my business, was get someone who's better than you, almost, who's going to be really good, and feel comfortable about nurturing that person and not being threatened by that person. Have a list of things that you should not spend your time on.
Non-negotiable. Yeah, non-negotiable. People get sucked into stuff that they shouldn't be doing, and they get into this downward spiral. But I keep coming back to a word that you mentioned earlier in my mind, is that and this is from personal experience, ego gets in the way. I need help, but my ego is saying to me it's a weakness. I'm showing my hand. People will think worse of me. And if you don't leave your ego at the door, you're not coachable. And if you're not coachable, you're never going to improve. So how much for you is, losing your ego and being coachable?
Oh, I love that. Yes, because I love the way that you phrase that, because if you're playing to your ego's needs, and our egos can be, in terms of our self-esteem, it can be a very difficult thing to acknowledge and confront. Look, every single person has that. But it means that then your purpose is aligned with your ego, and your purpose isn't aligned with that of the business's needs. And sometimes we need to go, do you know what? I'm not doing anyone any favors here. This is not for the purpose of the vision that we're playing to. And that doesn't always mean, and this can be a difficult thing, especially if your business is your baby as well, which is that sometimes you're not the best person to do those things. Someone else is.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's getting your priorities right, as we've talked earlier. I was talking to a gentleman a few months ago at a networking event who was boasting, and it's not a good character trait, but boasting about the financial success of his business, his multi-million-pound turnover. He had the bank balance and the house and the holiday home and all the rest of it. And, he was really puffing his chest out that he'd done a great job. And I said, yeah, great, but how's your relationship with your young children? How's your relationship with your wife? And his face turned sour. And, it dawned on him the fact that, he'd built this great business financially, but it was coming at a cost. And he just didn't have his priorities in the right order at all. And, he was reluctant to ask for help because in his mind, it wasn't broken.
Yes, exactly. And that's where having a really clear view of what does success actually look like to you.
So we've gone full circle, haven't we?
Yeah.
It goes back to vision again, doesn't it? If your idea of vision is to build a multi-million-pound business and have a bank balance and then get divorced and your kids hate you, then crack on. But the reality is, for most of us, having that loving relationship and that family around us is more important than it's ever been.
Yes, and it's the fact that you have that flexibility to provide but support. I mean, it's not to say that's everyone, as you say. There is going to be probably someone out there that just he's after the accolades and after the the bank balance, and that's, of course, profit's a very healthy thing. You have to have profit in a business, but at what cost, I think, is the way you said it. And it's that.
So
what should be on your shouldn't to-do list is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you want a better lifestyle, if you want to build a business and step more into success, if you want to, have that love and that family around you and be an admired and respected leader, then you've got to ask for help in the areas that you need it, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got to have a network that's going to support you, because no one person can do everything.
So where do people go that are looking to build a team? What do they just knock on your door if they want to build that kind of amazing dynamic team?
Yes, they can do. So the first thing is, being really clear. You can be really clear on what you're looking for, what your strengths are. So yes, if that's the kind of thing you're looking to do, is build a really people-focused company, then do come over to me. Would this be the time where I give out any details of where to find me?
Well, we've got them here. I think that they're pretty straightforward. I think the bottom line for me, Alexandra, and I've really enjoyed that chat this afternoon, that discussion, is that for me it's all about having a plan, and that plan articulates the vision, it articulates the purpose, it articulates the values, and it articulates the growth strategies and how you measure them. For you, you're about saying, how can I help you really dial in as a leader to achieve that purpose, and to lead your team and build a dynamic team to help you grow your business and step into success. Yes.
So between the two, it's quite dynamite, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that was the important thing for me. It's just really understanding how there's an interaction between, you can have the best plan in the world, but without a dynamic team, it's not any good at all. And you can have the most dynamic team at all, but without a vision and without a plan and without leadership, then that's no good at all. So the two sit very much in harmony, don't they? Very much hand in hand.
Yeah. Yes. ultimately, if you're going to be stepping into your own success, it's about learning about who you are, what you give, and what you need from other people to fulfill your vision. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you this afternoon, Alexandra. And, hopefully we can touch base in the future again and just go a little bit deeper on some of these topics. I'm sure that everything that we've discussed this afternoon is going to be of great value. So thanks ever so much again for your time. And,
thank you for having me. It's been great fun.
No, it's been absolutely great fun. And so thanks again. And I look forward to speaking to you very, very soon. Take care.